Hey circuit riders, welcome back to the channel. You know, several people have asked us recently what it's like to travel to multiple states during COVID. So stay tuned at the end of this video and I'm going to talk a little bit about what it's been like to travel around the country during this season. But first, let's enjoy a little southern charm in two great cities, Charleston, South Carolina and Savannah, Georgia. Enjoy! We've come to Charleston, South Carolina for the afternoon today, and we're doing a little walking tour. I love to use this app, GPS My City. It gives you great ideas for walking tours. If you pay for the premium version, it will map you through the tours, but if you want to stay free, you can just make note of all the locations and map them yourself on Google Maps, which is what I've done. And then once you get to the place, you read the description on the website, and it's fine for us, and I like that it's free. So Jason and I were just saying that this city, especially this old part of the city, feels very European. The roads are narrow, the buildings are big and grand. Most of the city was built in the early 1700s, it sounds like, and you know, probably some reconstruction after the Civil War. But what a grand southern traditional city. This street was called Rainbow Row. It was built in the 1700s as a row of shops with housing up above for sailors and other people. And there are conflicting stories about why all the buildings are different colors. Some said it was to be able to direct drunken sailors or illiterate slaves to which building they should go shopping at. But in any case, you can see the big carriage doors for deliveries and lots of signs of old culture. We ended our day at the Battery along the southern waterfront, and way out there in the distance is Fort Sumter National Monument. In 1860, South Carolina seceded from the Union States. This little fort was occupied by the United States Army at the time, and in 1861, the South Carolina militia bombarded the fort, which started the Civil War. Today we're heading south from our campground to explore Savannah, Georgia. So our campground is kind of right between Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, about an hour each way. And I'm gonna assume that these cities are very similar. We're gonna see if we can tell any difference and which one we like better today. We're also gonna use the GPS My City app again for this walking tour and introduction of the city. So let's get going. Just at first glance, Jason and I are really taken by how Spanish and South American Savannah feels. These squares are all over the city and people are just hanging out in the sunshine. There's music and lots of crowds, and it reminds us of Mazatlan and places in Chile that we visited in the past few years. And there's a lot of activity going on today here in Savannah. Jason just said, this is the exact thing that we love doing. And I said, there's nothing we love more than exploring an old city by foot and just making discoveries.
There's these parks everywhere.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So, Savannah or Charleston, what do you think?
Oh, Savannah, hands down.
I agree.
And Charleston was really great, so that's saying a lot.
Yeah, Charleston seems more stately to me, more old Europe, and Savannah seems a little more hip and party town, and there's really a lot of vibrancy going on here, a lot of activity. Yeah, I would definitely come back to Savannah and do some house tours and things after COVID's done and everything reopens again. So, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that some people have asked us recently what it's been like to travel between states during COVID. So I just wanted to share our experience because I'm sure a lot of you are curious. And of course, this is just our experience. I'm not going to talk about specifically mask usage other than to say that it's been all over the map. From every single person wearing a mask at all times in the Northeast to very sporadic usage the further south and the further rural we went. And it's pretty unusual to see people wearing masks within RV campgrounds, mainly because everybody is outside, and by design, RVers are already quarantining in their homes as they travel. Anyway, crossing state borders. I think there's a perception among people who are not traveling right now that when they hear that states are closed, that means that somehow there are authorities who are physically keeping people from entering those states. But that couldn't be further from the truth. We hit the road on May 14th of 2020, just a couple of months into the pandemic. And since then, we've crossed the borders of over 15 states, and we plan to do several more in the coming months. We have never encountered a barrier to crossing a state border. Everyone is driving on the highways like normal and going about their business. Much of this situation is really on the honor system, and each person is responsible for deciding the amount of risk they want to take and how they want to quarantine and whether to restrict their own travel or not. Where state restrictions might come into play is if you're checking into a public place like a hotel or a campground. The only place we have encountered anything like this was in Maine. We stayed at 2 campgrounds in Maine this summer. Both campgrounds required us to fill out a health form stating that where we were coming from and gave us a choice to say whether we had had a COVID test in the last 72 hours or we would quarantine ourselves for 14 days. The first time we entered the state, we were coming from Cape Cod in Massachusetts. At that time, Maine had a reciprocal agreement with some of the New England states that people could travel between them without getting tested. So at that campground in Wells, Maine, we did have to prove to them that we had spent the last 2 weeks in Massachusetts by showing them our campground reservation. And then we were able to check into the campground with no problem. But I have seen other YouTubers who were coming into Maine from outside of New England, and they did choose to have a negative COVID test before checking into their campground in Maine. I don't know if it was required, but that's what they chose to do. At the second campground that we stayed at in Maine, we had to fill out the same health form, but by that time we had already been in Maine for the past 3 weeks, so it was no problem to check in. And that's it. We have not been asked to fill out any other health forms in any other states. Now, all of the campgrounds have visibly posted rules about COVID safety, and for the most part, the office staff are wearing masks. In general, the campgrounds that we stayed at in the Northeast had chosen to completely close down their amenities, like the pool and the snack bars. But as we traveled south more of these amenities were open with restrictions, like you had to sign up for a slot at the pool, or only a certain number of people in the pool at a time, and then it would be closed periodically for cleaning. Or the snack bar is open for takeout only, that kind of thing. So this is obviously a highly personal decision about whether to travel or not during this season. But if you've been putting off visiting family or friends in another state because you're afraid that you'll be detained or challenged somehow, I just want you to know that that has not been our experience. We have loved traveling this year, and we've felt safe, and we know that we are responsible for our own choices. So that's all I had to share on that. If you have more questions about our experience with this, please leave a comment down below, and I'd be happy to try to answer them, or at least I'll give you my opinion. Next week, we're heading to the Golden Isles of Georgia. You saw a little bit of that if you watched my Christmas video. It was such a beautiful area, and I'm so excited to show you that next week. So until then, we'll see you next time. Bye.